Roger that. All flights. Initiate jump sequence. We got Bravo.
Shit! Hey, Ginger! Damn it! Yay, the bishop falls! Now religion won't interfere with government.
Come at me. Try and fart on me. Come on. You are becoming quite proficient at this.
Let's hope it works on the big one.
Breathing stable.
And those are our nominees for Best Xbox 360 Game on GameSpot's Game of the Year Awards 2014. Let's start with a new one. Let's start with the Microsoft exclusive.
Titanfall!
Titanfall, yeah.
Titanfall.
Game that came out, seems like ages ago now.
March.
Back in Q1. It was a game that people were sort of craving for months and months, and didn't disappoint.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I was really looking forward to it as a big competitive shooter fan. And yeah, God, that parkour system, that wall running system, it just, to me, it felt so fresh. And in the very populated competitive multiplayer landscape, to be able to not only have your player mobility fundamentally altered by being able to wall run, by being able to double jump, and by being encouraged to string all these things together, and you have to do that unless you want to be a sitting duck, to have that, which would have been like an entirely great game on its own,
yeah.
But you also have Titans. You also call those in, and they're all on the same battlefield, and I think the achievement in balancing those things, in creating spaces where both pilots and Titans can feel like they're powerful on the battlefield, and it's just makes each match feel so cool. And then one of my favorite things, the evacuation at the end of the match. Like, the match is decided, if you won or you lost, but there's still that rush to get to the dropship. There's still that last hurrah that really puts an exclamation point on the end of a competitive multiplayer match in such a clever way. I wouldn't be surprised if that also makes the list of things we see imitated in the future.
Absolutely. It was one of those games, like you said, few and far between do you get a first-person competitive game that really actually makes you think differently about the way you approach combat. So yeah, for me as well, Titanfall was a fantastic addition to the world of first-person competitive games.
But pretty interesting that it was one of the only sort of exclusives that we've talked about so far. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we are honoring with our nominees thus far is multi-platform. It was a huge year for multi-platform games.
Completely, and the next four games we're going to talk about have all been mentioned already in our nominees today. First of all, let's talk about Dark Souls 2 again.
Yeah,
good
totally.
experience on a previous gen console as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, a lot of people
only to this point. Actually.
Yeah, only to this point. We'll get
Soon.
more, and hopefully that means that that lighting model that people craved will appear that we didn't see in the first one. But even so, I still think Dark Souls 2 is really great. I think it's hard to beat what I consider to be possibly the best game of its time, which is Dark Souls. But I'd say they got real close, and it's just a fantastic game. I love the way it feels, the heft. And just enough little tweaks here and there in a brand new world to make it seem really fresh.
And the controller stuff worked right off the bat on this one as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Everything just feels right. But just the little things were there to make it feel different and unique, so it could stand on its own rather than have to be, it's just a sequel. It's just another Dark Souls. Well, actually, no. It has a significant enough feel, difference to it that it really does. Stand on its own as a fantastic game.
On the other end of the RPG scale, we're going back to South Park for the Stick of Truth, Alexa.
Yay! I mean, I just keep going back to it's a good RPG. We have had so few good RPGs, obviously Dragon Age aside, which I guess we'll get back to. But there have been so few very well done Western ones, and I think this made a very great use of a kind of silly property and turned it into like a serious, game with a lot of strategy.
Definitely
Also, it's
serious.
just funny.
You're talking to a poo.
Yeah,
Well, no, they did a
Totally.
really good job fitting it within fitting the South Park universe into the RPG framework.
Yeah, one of the sort of debates we had downstairs was, if you weren't a South Park fan, could you enjoy this game? Because the combat stuff is pretty light in comparison to a lot of other
lot of fetch quests.
role-playing games. Chris, what did you think about it in terms of...
What?
I think the most telling thing for me was that this is a game that people in the office would go home, they would play, and they'd come back the next morning all talking about and all having their different anecdote about like this hilarious scene, that hilarious scene. They'd try to find a gameplay clip of it to show off, or they'd be just like reenacting it in the office. I think that passion for just like that kind of humor, that getting that kind of response that it's still filling you with glee the morning after is just, it's really special.
Fantastic game. Then going back to another game we've heard a bunch about today, Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. One of my favorite games on PlayStation 4. There were some thoughts and concerns in our debate downstairs about the draw distance issues on the previous gen consoles, but that didn't stop it from getting nominated on both PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 Game of the Year awards. Still a fantastic game, like everything that's essentially in the current gen version is in this one as well, and it's great to see that Snake kind of made a home on PlayStation for so long, so it's interesting always to see him pop up on the Xbox 360.
Yeah, he was all over the place, man.
Crazy.
Tracy.
Our last nominee for the Xbox 360, one we've talked about a bunch already, but let's talk about it again. Dragon Age Inquisition. Kevin, you're a big fan of this bad boy.
I do love Dragon Age. And I think it's worth pointing out, too, that one of my favorite things about Dragon Age Inquisition is how well it takes sort of the personal storytelling that you yourself craft in a large world that you explore and combines it with that more traditional BioWare storytelling where you follow conversation paths and make a linear story of your own, but then you're also making the adventure story of your own. And this is the first time I think any game's really gotten good at combining both of those things without making one or the other feel like it got the short end of the stick. And I think that's really impressive.
Excellent. Well, those are our 5 nominees for Best Xbox 360 Game on this GameSpot's 2014 Game of the Year Awards. Make sure you check back on December 16th, where we'll be announcing the winners of this and, of course, the Xbox One winner as well.